There are two kinds of men in this world. Not rich and poor, not tall and short, not the ones with six-pack abs and the ones without. The two kinds of men are these, the ones who are ruled by their life and the ones who rule it. And the difference between them isn't talent, it isn't luck, it isn't even confidence, not really. It's 6 specific habits, 6 quiet, invisible patterns that most men never even notice in themselves, until one day they look around and wonder why nothing in their life seems to be moving. Today we're going to go through all 6, slowly, one at a time, because I don't just want you to hear these, I want you to recognize yourself in at least one of them. That's where the real change starts. Stay till the end, because sign number 5 is the one almost nobody talks about, and in my experience, it's the one that quietly ends more friendships than money problems, distance, or drifting apart ever do. People rarely say it out loud. They just stop calling. Let's begin. Sign number 1. A weak man lets his emotions control him. There's a term poker players use, tilt. It's that moment after a bad beat where your decision-making quietly breaks. You're still playing the same game, with the same skill you had 5 minutes ago, but now you're playing angry, and angry plays worse than amateur. The strange part is, the better players don't feel less frustration than everyone else. They've just trained themselves to recognize the tilt arriving, and they fold the next hand instead of chasing the last one. You don't need to gamble for money to know exactly what that feels like. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A coworker takes credit for your idea in a meeting. A text gets left on read for 6 hours. And suddenly you're not thinking clearly, you're replaying it, rehearsing comebacks, ruining the next 2 hours of your own day over something that's already over. That's tilt, and it doesn't care how smart or successful you are. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Emotions aren't the enemy. Anger, frustration, sadness, these are normal. Even strong men feel all of it. The difference is what happens in the 3 seconds after the emotion shows up. A weak man feels it and acts on it immediately. A strong man feels it and then chooses his response. That gap, that tiny pause between feeling and reacting, is where all personal power lies. Some people call it self-control. Others call it emotional intelligence. I just call it the gap. And the men who learn to live inside that gap are the ones who don't blow up relationships over small things, who don't send the text they regret at 2 a.m., who don't lose opportunities because they couldn't keep their composure in a meeting. Mastery over your emotions isn't about becoming cold or robotic. It's about becoming someone whose actions are chosen, not triggered. So if you've ever reacted to something and immediately thought, why did I just do that? That's not a character flaw. That's just a skill you haven't built yet. And skills can be built. Sign number 2. Excuses are easy, and a weak man reaches for them first. Think about the last time something went wrong in your life. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe a job fell through. Maybe a goal you set in January was quietly abandoned by March. What was the first sentence that came to mind? Was it I should have, or was it if only they had? That one sentence tells you almost everything about where a man stands. Here's a small but telling test. Think of the last argument you had with someone close to you. Now try to describe it in one sentence without using the word but. I raised my voice, but he started it. I canceled, but work was insane. Notice how the word but is almost always doing the same job. It's the hinge where responsibility quietly swings away from you and onto someone or something else. It's not even dishonest most of the time. It's just automatic. A weak man blames the traffic, the economy, his parents, his ex, his boss, his luck. And here's the trap. Sometimes those things really did play a part. The traffic was real. The boss really was unfair. But here, what blame does, even when it's justified, it hands your power to someone else. The moment you say it's their fault, you've also said there's nothing I can do about it. You've made yourself a passenger in your own life. A strong man takes a different approach. He asks one question: what part of this was on me, and what am I going to do differently next time? Even in situations that are 90% someone else's fault, he looks for his 10% because that 10% is the only part he can actually act on. This isn't about self-blame or guilt. It's about ownership. Owning your role doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means everything that's fixable, you're willing to fix. Excuses feel good for about 5 minutes. Ownership feels uncomfortable for 5 minutes and then changes the next 5 years. Sign number 3. Constantly needing other people's approval is quietly giving away your power. Here's a question worth sitting with. How many decisions have you made in the last year because of what you actually wanted, versus how many because you didn't want someone to think less of you? The job you stayed in 2 years too long. The opinion you didn't share at dinner because you could already feel the room disagreeing. The way your voice changes slightly when a certain person walks in. A lot of men are walking around performing a version of themselves that exists only to be approved of, and the exhausting part is that performance never actually finishes. There's always one more person to impress. This is the trap of external validation. It feels like confidence because you're getting reactions, likes, compliments, approval. But it's the opposite of confidence. It's dependency. And dependency is fragile because the moment the approval stops coming, the whole identity built on top of it starts to shake. A strong man still cares what people think, that's human, and pretending you don't is its own kind of lie. But he doesn't need it. He's already decided who he is before anyone else weighs in. His standards come from inside the house, not from the street outside. True strength is quiet in this way. It doesn't need an audience to confirm it's real. If you want to test where you stand on this, ask yourself, would I still be proud of this decision if no one ever found out about it? If the answer is yes, you're probably acting from your own values. If the answer is no, that's worth sitting with. Quick pause because I want to ask you something directly, not as a setup to the next point, just because it's worth 30 seconds of honesty. Of the 3 signs you've heard so far, which one made you shift slightly in your seat? Not which one applies to men in general, which one applies to you this month? You don't have to answer out loud, but if you skip past that question, you'll watch the rest of this and walk away with information instead of change. And I'd rather give you the second one. All right, let's keep going. Sign number 4. Weak men avoid challenges. Strong men face them head-on because that's where growth actually happens. There's a comfortable lie a lot of men tell themselves. I'm just waiting for the right time. The right time to start the business. The right time to have the hard conversation. The right time to go to the gym, ask for the raise, end the relationship that's been over for a year. Here's a strange thing about that conversation you keep rehearsing in your head but never actually have. You've probably had it 50 times already, in the shower, in traffic, lying awake at 1 a.m. building the version where it goes perfectly. The only thing missing is the other person actually being in the room. That's the tell. When you've rehearsed something extensively but never attempted it, that's not preparation anymore. That's avoidance wearing a costume. But hear what nobody says out loud. The right time is a myth designed to protect you from doing something uncomfortable today. Avoidance always feels smart in the moment. It feels like patience. It feels like strategy. But avoidance has a cost, and the cost is compound interest. The longer you avoid something, the bigger and scarier it gets in your head, even though the actual task usually stays exactly the same size. Strong men aren't fearless. That's a misconception. They feel the same fear, the same hesitation, the same voice saying, maybe not today. The difference is they've learned something weak men haven't learned yet. The fear doesn't go away before you act. It goes away after. Every challenge you walk into instead of around is doing 2 things at once. It's solving the actual problem in front of you, and it's quietly proving to the part of your brain that doubts you that you can be trusted to handle hard things. That proof is what confidence is actually built from, not pep talks, evidence. So if there's a conversation you've been putting off, or a decision sitting in the back of your mind right now while you watch this. That's probably not a coincidence. And now sign number 5, the one I told you about at the start, the quiet one. A weak man tears others down. A strong man lifts people up by staying focused on his own journey. Here, why this one is so dangerous and so easy to miss in yourself. It rarely looks like cruelty. It looks like just being honest. It looks like jokes that land a little too hard. It looks like quietly celebrating when a friend's plan fails, or feeling a strange relief when someone you know gets passed over for something you wanted. It looks like comparison disguised as opinion. He only got that because of who he knows. She's not even that talented. I could do that easily, I just haven't tried yet. Here's the part that might actually annoy you a little, and I mean that as a compliment to your honesty if it does. The group chat is usually where this lives the most. Not the loud arguments, the quiet running commentary on everyone who isn't in the chat. The friend who got engaged. The guy from high school who started the business. The ex who looks happy now. If the group chat's favorite hobby is finding the flaw in everyone else's life, that's not banter. That's 5 men collectively practicing sign number 5, in real time, and calling it a joke. None of that feels like tearing someone down while you're doing it. It feels like commentary. But underneath almost all of it is the same root, insecurity looking for relief. When a man feels behind in his own life, putting other people below him creates a false sense of being ahead. It's a shortcut. And like most shortcuts, it doesn't actually take you anywhere. It just makes you feel like you moved. The strong man's version looks almost boring by comparison. He sees someone winning and feels happy for them. Not because he's pretending, not because he's a saint, but because his sense of worth isn't a pie with limited slices. Someone else's success doesn't subtract from his. He's not in that competition. He's only competing with who he was last year. This is also, by the way, the sign that quietly costs men the most: friendships that fade, respect that erodes, a reputation that becomes that guy who always has something negative to say. People feel it even when they can't name it. They do confront you about it. They just stop inviting you slowly without ever telling you why. If you want one practical filter for this, here it is. Before you say something about someone else, ask, am I building or am I comparing? Building lifts the room. Comparing always needs someone underneath you to work. And finally, sign number 6, the one that ties every other sign together. Discipline separates the weak from the strong. Here, why this one comes last, and why it's really the foundation underneath all 5 before it. Every single sign we've talked about today, emotional control, ownership, inner validation, facing challenges, lifting others up, none of them are one-time decisions. You don't master your emotions once and you're done forever. You don't take ownership one time and become a different man permanently. These are daily choices, repeated, often when no one is watching and nothing dramatic is happening. That repetition is discipline, and discipline rarely looks impressive in the moment it's happening. It looks like getting up when the alarm goes off instead of snoozing it. It looks like the workout you didn't feel like doing. It looks like the difficult conversation you have today instead of next month. It looks like biting your tongue on the comment that would have made you feel superior for 10 seconds. None of those moments go viral. None of them feel like a turning point while they're happening. But add them up over a year, and they become the entire difference between the man who's still standing in the same place and the man who's somewhere completely different. Small daily habits aren't the boring part of self-improvement. They're the only part that actually works. Motivation gets you started. Discipline is the only thing that's ever finished anything. So let's bring it all together. A weak man is ruled by his emotions. A strong man chooses his response. A weak man blames. A strong man owns it. A weak man needs approval. A strong man trusts himself. A weak man avoids the hard thing. A strong man walks toward it. A weak man tears people down to feel tall. A strong man lifts people up and runs his own race. And underneath all of it, A weak man relies on motivation. A strong man relies on discipline. Here's the part I actually want you to take away from this, more than any single sign. None of this is about being weak as a person, as an identity, as something permanent stamped on you. Every man alive has done at least one of these 6 things this month, probably this week. That includes me. These aren't categories of men, they're habits available to all of us in different amounts on different days. The question was never, which one are you? The real question is, which one are you ready to work on starting today? If one of these 6 hit a little close to home, that's not a bad sign. That's actually useful information. That's your starting point. So here's my real question for the comments, and I'd genuinely rather you answer this one than just say, "Great video." Which of these 6 do you secretly think you've gotten worse at in the last year, not better? Not the one that's easiest to admit, the one you'd hesitate to text a friend about. I read every comment, and the honest ones are always the ones that start the best conversations down there. If this helped you see something in yourself, share it with a man in your life who needs to hear it today. And if you want more of this, straight talk about becoming the man you actually respect when you look in the mirror, subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is for. I'll see you in the next one.